Hey everybody, Neil Flynn here, and it is Sports Shorts time once again. A couple things I wanted to get into before we go into the picks, and that was a response from last week's video about playoff expansion, and it was Mr. DSBX Finest wondering, if they had had that last year, what were the teams that would have gotten in? It was actually the American League. It would have been Boston, and in the National League, it would have been San Diego. So it would have been interesting to have Boston in there again. And of course, San Diego was fighting with San Francisco and Atlanta all the way down to the wire to get in, and they just missed out. So had there been the expansion, those were the teams that would have gotten in. So it would have been interesting to see what would have happened. It'll be interesting to see if they actually go with the expansion. I don't know if they will, but they want money, so they probably will. Couple other stories I wanted to get into. First off, kind of a crossover between the two things that my channel focuses on, being sports and video games, and that is people getting up in arms about Kobe Bryant's appearance in the Call of Duty Black Ops commercial, and I just don't understand the big deal over the commercial. There's nothing, you don't see him shooting anyone. Basically, if you guys haven't seen the commercial, I'll put a link to it actually on here. I'll find it on YouTube and put a link. But basically, it just shows a bunch of people running around shooting guns. You don't see them shooting at anything, but it's as if it's their real life personas inside the game that they're playing. And, like Kobe's holding a gun, and on the end of the gun it says Mamba, which is, his nickname. And so it's kind of like they're imagining themselves within the game world. And, people are all up in arms, oh, he shouldn't be promoting guns and violence and all that. But people, take a step back. Look, it's a video game, okay? It's not only is a video game, but it's, if I'm not mistaken, a mature-rated video game, which means kids shouldn't be playing it anyways. So, just lighten up. It's a video game. Get over it. Is my whole thing. And the whole gist of the commercial is there's a soldier in all of us, and so it's them imagining their, and Jimmy Kimmel's in the commercial, so that pretty much negates anything right there. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which is something that in my world, being a huge Nebraska fan, has been huge, and that is the uproar over Bo Pelini's antics on the sideline during the Texas A&M game. And being a Nebraska fan and watching that game and seeing one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in my life, if I was Bo Pelini, I'd probably be yelling at somebody too. And the not just him yelling at the officials, but that at one point he tore into starting quarterback Taylor Martinez while he was on the sideline after he'd just come back from the locker room getting x-rays after being hurt. And there's a lot of speculation as to what that was about. The overwhelming majority seemed to think that there was something where he was either calling or texting his dad on his cell phone, either on the sidelines or in the locker room, and Bo wasn't too happy about that. But they've kind of, I guess, talked it over or whatever, and everything's fine now. But just everybody was getting up in arms about how animated Bo Pelini was on the sidelines. And I'm, it's an emotional sport. He's an emotional guy. He's a fiery guy, which is part of the reason they brought him to Nebraska. And I actually like to see that out of coaches. I hate these coaches that just stand there, so serious on the sidelines. I actually like to see somebody getting into it and going after people, and especially considering some of the stuff that was going on during that game, I can't get too upset at him. But some people say he crossed the line. He's apologized for it. And then there was a incident with his brother, who's an assistant coach, his defensive coordinator, and Texas A&M cameraman, where something happened where either he was trying to get the person out of the way. It's a mob scene after the game, and he's trying to get the person away, and something happened with his camera, but he's apologized and everything's fine. So just a big mess that came out of that horrible, horrible game. But anyway, to get into the picks, reviewing last week's picks, we went 3-4-1, 1-2-1 in college, and then 2-2 in the NFL. We missed on Maryland over FSU. We pushed Iowa and Ohio State. We missed Northwestern. I don't know what happened in that game. I blame the one-way play in Wrigley Field for that one. And then we hit on Stanford over Cal. I told you Cal wouldn't have anything left, and they didn't. And then in the pro game, totally missed on Minnesota. That's a team in turmoil as the coach gets fired this week. Hit Atlanta over St. Louis, and it hit Indy over New England. Thank you to the spread on that one. And missed on San Francisco, Tampa Bay. Again, I don't know what happened on that one either. But getting into this week's picks, a good slate of college games to pick from. Lots of rivalries going on this week. Of course, the big one, Auburn at Alabama, which actually happens tomorrow. And Auburn just getting no respect. They're actually a 4.5-point underdog going into Alabama. And it's going to be an interesting game. I don't see where Alabama's defense can really stop Auburn. So if Auburn's defense can stop Alabama, I don't see any way that Auburn can lose this game. And with, pretty much a national title trip, hanging in the balance, because if they get one loss, it's uncertain whether they'll still get back in even if they win the SEC. So it kind of hinges on this game. They're already in the SEC championship, win or lose, but they can't have that loss, especially this late, because they don't have any time to make it back up. Excuse me. Then we got the classic Florida rivalry, Florida at Florida State. Florida State getting 2.5 points at home, and I will take Florida State in that one. And then we have the big in-state rivalry where I live, Georgia Tech at Georgia. Neither one of these teams is very good. But for some reason, they're just giving no love to Georgia Tech, as they are a 13-point underdog. I don't know if Georgia Tech will win, but I think it'll be close either way. So I think 13... I think it's too much, so I'll take Georgia Tech plus the 13. And last but not least, a lot of people on either side of the fence on this one, Michigan State at Penn State. And I will take Penn State to knock off Michigan State. Penn State plus the 1 point. It's at Penn State. Tough place to play. Michigan State did not look good against Purdue last week, so we'll see what happens there. Moving on to the NFL. Got Philadelphia at Chicago. Philadelphia, 3.5-point favorite. They've just been on a tear lately, and I think they will continue that, especially over a fairly weak Chicago team. Then we got Green Bay at Atlanta. Atlanta at home is very tough to beat, and they are a 2-point favorite versus Green Bay. Atlanta with the best record in the NFC, and I look for them to continue their winning ways. Next up, San Diego at Indianapolis. Indy getting 3 points. Not getting 3 points, sorry. Giving 3 points at home. Chargers have been on a tear lately. Peyton Manning just came up short against New England, but I look for them to rebound at home in this one. And last but not least, San Francisco at Arizona. San Francisco getting 1 point on the road. They didn't look so good last week, but Arizona has looked terrible all year. So I'll take San Francisco minus the 1 point in that one. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these. I've been getting some good comments, so I will keep making them, and hopefully you guys will keep watching them. And we will see you next week.